on this computer.
Cool.
Cool bananas.
Fantastic. Live streaming. My first live stream.
You know, before COVID, until this lockdown, I'd never really live streamed on Facebook ever.
No.
This is a whole new experience, and it's actually really easy.
Is it?
And it's really good because
you've been doing it very well.
Oh, thanks. So, Mr. Simon McNamara, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Vanessa. How are you?
Can I tell you, you're a sight for sore eyes. It's so nice to see you. I just can't believe I have to see you through Zoom.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? I was trying to think the other day, when was the last time that I saw you? I think it might have been at Rose Hill was the last time that we caught.
Yeah.
So it seems like forever.
I was actually, you know, when I did my introduction to you and what I admire most about you is that, and I didn't put this in there because I thought, it's a little bit of overkill, but you're kind of like a sounding board to me. Like over the years, if there's anyone whose opinion I've always really appreciated, you're definitely one of those people.
It's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
You just have this.
I think the thing is we've both seen each other in various different guises over the years through various different roles, and how our careers have sort of gone through, and you know what we've done has changed in that sort of sense. So it's, you know, it's always nice to be able to keep. I think that's the great thing about this industry is you can keep in touch with people as things sort of go along, and you know, it's certainly.
We kind of grew up together, didn't we? We went through our 30s and 40s. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to tell anyone how old I am, but you know,
I think my grey beard gives mine away, and I've had to give myself a haircut during COVID and everything else. So, you know.
Like that's the hard thing at the moment is like the haircut. And now I'm like the greys, I'm like having to pull out the all the tricks at the minute.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting the boot polish out from my beard to maybe make myself look a bit younger as I come back through. But yeah, I think the clippers might be coming out again over the next couple of weeks.
So you in your office at work?
I am at work, yeah. I am at work today.
So what are you guys doing at the moment? How are you, what are you doing while you're at work?
We just had a few little bits and pieces. This week has probably been, I suppose, in the first few weeks, obviously going through shutting down the business, and then we've sort of had various things happening along the way, you know, liaising with some of the breweries and those sorts of parts as they sort of gone through their transitions of, you know, whether we're going to be getting products back to them, some of our bigger suppliers. And then from my point of view, it's just sort of been dealing with a few of my, you know, talking with my staff really, and the guys that I work with, you know, keeping everybody involved really inside the business. So, you know, we've been having little projects for our chefs to be doing. They've all had homework and things like that, and those sorts of things. So sort of chatting with them, and as well, I suppose, you know, chatting with my direct team of people, and you know, seeing what everybody's up to. Though it doesn't really change too much every day, but yeah.
And that's kind of exhausting, right? Like it's exhausting to have. You kind of have to connect, and I mean, you've got members as well that you need to be still mindful of and still be reaching out to, I imagine.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. So we just started up, probably ramped that up in the last couple of weeks. So we started reaching out to our members about, you know, talking about the vaccination thing, which is probably a little bit controversial along the way, but you know, we've been doing some stuff with our members and also with our staff about sending through, you know, where we are with the vaccinations, and, you know, going into part of draws. We've done some giveaways on social media, you know, been able to do some giveaways and those sorts of things. And also with our staff, you know, little things on our staff social media pages, you know, getting little activities for them to do, and quizzes and questions, and, you know, posting photos of themselves and all that sort of stuff, which has been really funny and exciting and that sort of stuff. So that's been good fun.
And have you done like a pet day yet, where they have to send a photo of their pets?
Yep. Everybody's had little pet days and those sorts of things. I think there was one the other day with what was your first picture on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So, and my guys, my chefs have been really good. They've been sending through a constant stream of recipes. So we've sort of been doing recipe of the day, where the chefs have been putting together various different things. And we've used that inside of our, I suppose, planning for new menus, and, you know, telling everybody, you know, if you were head chef for the day, what would you put on the menu? You know, and then anything that's good, then we sort of come back through, and once we reopen, we'll use those things to make sure that everybody can see. We'll put them on as a special and give everybody something to do. So yeah, it's been good fun.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because like when we come out of this lockdown and we launch back into that recovery phase, look, it depends, I suppose, on where we sit with the 4 square metre rule, etc., as to what we'll be able to take on board.
Yeah.
But it's going to be head down and butt up, right? I mean, that's what we're hoping for. We're going to be going into Christmas.
Well, that's right. We were just talking about it today. Realistically, at this time of year, we're getting together. We were talking about Melbourne Cup in the lead up to closing down. I'd sort of said to the events guys and marketing was about, I want a really special Melbourne Cup this year. We missed out last year. I want something that's, out of the box this year. What can we do that's different? And, how can we ramp it up? And then, now we're going to be struggling to be open. So we don't know what Melbourne Cup's going to look like when we get to that other side. And you're right, it's Christmas time. We're still getting people coming through looking for Christmas parties and those sorts of things. But yeah, what are events going to look like? What are Christmas parties going to be like? All that sort of side of things. It's, yeah. I think you're right. I think because the fact that people haven't been able to see each other, we're just saying that today, that I think dining and certainly the bigger venues are going to be really popular because, the last year you were able to have 5 people in your house. This year you can't have anybody in your house. So people are going to be wanting to get back together and clubs and pubs and restaurants are going to be the way that people are going to be getting together and catching up. So how's that going to look? Are we going to be able to?
I totally agree with you. I mean, and I suppose it's a really good segue into part of the conversation I wanted to have with you, which is how far clubs have come in the last 15 years. And you played a massive role in changing that whole entire landscape. And I know you I know you're really humble and you don't like to really talk about that, but I remember back at going into Canterbury when you were there, and it was just like, oh my God, I mean, you had waterfalls out the front and everything. It was an incredible venue.
And I suppose I've been lucky, going back to Canterbury and the places that I've worked since then is, going into businesses that are really wanting to push the boundaries and push ahead and develop new food outlets and develop new ideas and that sort of stuff. So, I've been really, really lucky over the years to work not only in, with great organisations that want to push ahead and do those things, but also with great teams of people that want to be a part of that journey as well. So, yeah, I think Canterbury was probably the big one. We did a massive redevelopment when I first went into there about, changing our direction of food. And I remember, it's funny, I'm thinking the other day last night when I saw your little thingo about, coming into the club industry, and I remember friends of mine ringing me up and saying, oh, why are you going to a club and what are you wanting to do that? Because I'd sort of been predominantly in restaurants and hotels in the lead up to that. And I suppose for me, it was, why not? Clubs are great places and big organisations and, looking to change. And that was the time when we were looking to change the direction of food inside clubs. And, there was quite a few, I think there was quite a few other guys within the industry that as well were coming in from outside the club industry and wanting to be a part of that change and that growth. So I think it was a good time, and it's been, yeah, what you said is right. Over the last, 10 to 15 years, the changes within the club industry as far as where our food has gone to, I think is fantastic, and it's driven by the people that are a part of that challenge. So, and I enjoy it. It's good fun.
It was kind of a little bit like the alignment of the universe, wasn't it, when you think about it? Because the timing was right. The clubs had started to amalgamate as well. So there was a lot of acquisitions that had started happening, and clubs were becoming a conglomerate. It's not just about the food that and the fact that they are a dining destination and a food hub. I just admire the culture within clubs as well, and the way that they look after their people and the way that they look after all people, not just staff, but their members as well.
Yep. And, and that's another thing I think you have to change. You've coming from restaurants and going into clubs, you have to change how you are as a person and how you are as a manager, because all of a sudden you've got so many more people to deal with, working with departments. There's so many different departments inside a big organisation, and how do you all work together for the same goal? Because we've all got to come together in one way, shape or form to make things happen. So how do we all work together? And then, treating your staff, you have to nurture people. I think that's probably the one thing that I do enjoy about clubs as well, is the fact that, training people and nurturing people, and it doesn't matter what role you're in. I think it's really important that, we look after the future of our business and we keep evolving people. And those of us that are a bit older and are a bit grayer, it's about passing those things on and making sure that we do have a future. I think that's really important.
I think that the time when it started to really change was when clubs started their venues, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm just an observer here, but is when the clubs started to create their own cost centre, and the food and beverage department started to become a lot more responsible for the cash flow or the P&L within that cost centre.
Yep, very much so. I think I remember from my early days coming into clubs, it was, anybody can come and run a business at a loss. You don't really have to spend much time doing stuff inside there, but to come in and take these businesses and make sure that you do become a profit center and you understand all the money coming in and all the money going out. And it's a big change, and it's changing that whole mentality inside, not only inside the food and beverage departments, but also inside the whole club as well, because you need to be a part of the revenue stream for those businesses. And, whilst we're certainly not a big part of the profit part of those businesses, it's still a very important part of our business, because as I said before, all the different departments flow in together, and it's really important to make sure that happens within clubs.
And I love the diversity within clubs as well. I mean, you can go there. I actually was reading an old article that you were featured in, and it was actually in the MLA magazine or in their book, and it was like 100 years ago, right? And I think it was when you were in the first chef's table.
Oh, yep.
And that's a great initiative that Clubs New South Wales started, 15, 16 years ago. And I think you've been part of that pretty much every year since. And
pretty much since it started,
yeah. And I've always been a real advocate for it, and tried to sponsor it with any business that I've kind of gone into, which has been really exciting. And that's what I say, like, it was like a clash of the universe where everything just started to evolve together, and that the way that even that competition has evolved has been incredible as well.
Well, I remember coming into the chef's table, and it was a real big thing. I remember sitting down with my guys and saying, we are going to go into this, and it's not about me. It's about putting, the first couple of years, I think we just put apprentices into it. And it was about giving them the support, and it was something else for them to do, developing your own menus, and then the senior chefs would sort of help out in the menu planning, and then giving the guys the time to go through and, put those recipes together, do the costings. And I think more and more now, even the financial side of it, it's very important that young chefs understand the money side of the business. And that's probably where things have had to change, is chefs really have to understand more about the business in these days, because costs, wage costs, food costs, all sorts of parts of our business are such big things that everybody understands. And the chef table was an ability to start that, because you had to cost it. You had to, I remember correctly, it was, I think, $18 per person we were allowed to spend back in the early days. So, trying to get some menus together that were good and well presented. And that's where I think that helped drive the big change with clubs as well, with food, because that inspired people to do better and to push themselves. I think that was a real big turning point.
And to also evolve that whole offering as well, because it really did push chefs out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah.
And it was more than just the schnitzel and the roast and the fish of the day or whatever it was. You had to be creative.
And I think the other thing that's evolved within clubs now is, I know with what we do here at West, it's about having different types of food destinations. There's a lot of big groups out there these days, and it's about making sure that I think one of the first things that I recognised when I came into work with West Group was, how do we make our members want to come to each of our venues for a different journey? What's our point of difference in regards to getting people in and giving them something different inside each venue, so that they can come through and go and try and see different things, not only in food, but, in what we offer drinks wise and service wise. But it is, I think all those things have sort of helped push. And the chef's table, I think needed to evolve over those years. And I think, you know, it was interesting to see this year's one. I know that we were looking forward. Everybody was looking forward to a good night out this year. It was hopeful that we were about to go back in there and do. I think it was the perfect plate this year was the one. So we had a dish. We had a couple of dishes from each of our venues inside of that. So yeah, it's been interesting to see it change. And you know, as we all know, these things needed to change over the years as well.
Yeah, I think that COVID's definitely started to make us look at what we're doing and how we can change. So tell me, where did your apprenticeship start? Like, what got you into food in the first place?
I took so when I left school, funnily enough, I initially said after I left school that I was going to be an accountant. And then I took a year
off.
Third
person this week that said that.
No.
Can you believe Julio Azzarello was going to be an accountant as well?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. And then I took a year off and started working in hospitality. You know, started off washing dishes basically was what I did, and then probably about halfway through that first year after school, I decided that I wanted to become an apprentice chef, and HTN. I was able to get in touch with HTN in their early days, and back then I think they were based at Chatswood. So I went out to Chatswood for an interview, and they were able to put me in with Trippus White Catering. So I started off with Trippus White at the State Library. Pardon me, was my first job. Yeah, I think I worked on their pastry section for about 6 months when I first started cooking. So that was it. It was. I have a laugh. I remember my parents at the time had went overseas, so I was living back in Sydney with a mate of mine, and I remember telling my mum that I was going to become an apprentice chef, and you know, I wasn't going to go to university, and my mum cried. You know, didn't understand that, you know, why I wasn't going to go to uni and that sort of stuff. And you know, obviously that's changed over the years and everything else. But yeah,
it actually hasn't. It actually it hasn't with parents, but yeah.
But yeah, and then, you know, went from Trippus White, and you know, again, I suppose that was the great thing about HTN is I was able to move around. You know, Trippus White back then, Brian and I think it was Kim back then in the early days. So they had a few venues, and I was able to move around and try different things in amongst what they were doing, and then yeah, went on from there to hotels, and again, the great thing about HTN was the fact that you could go to lots of different venues along the way and try out different types of food and you know, different types of service. And I think that was probably the good thing for me. And then I finished up my apprenticeship. I was at the Lord Nelson Hotel, I think, when I finished, and sort of went on from there. So yeah, it was and look, I've loved every minute of it really along the years. I wouldn't change it for bits.
Yeah, and so you are very good at numbers. I mean, there's no denying that. You can't even say that you're not, because it's definitely a big strength of yours. Is that account that combining that love of numbers with accounting to food, is that something that you were always just had a natural ability for?
I think you know, in the early days, it was just about getting a really good understanding of the business and wanting to learn more about the costs of running the business. I think that was an important thing, is even coming into restaurants, was understanding what it costs, not only what it costs to put food on a table, but what are the costs involved with every aspect of the business. You know, you've got linen and buying cutlery and crockery, and we all know, you know, they're massive big parts. Setting up restaurants is such a huge cost for anybody doing it. And I have a lot of respect for people who, you know, the mum and dad small businesses who take that commitment to set themselves up. But I think it was more driven for me was, yeah, being able to understand all the costs involved with every aspect of the business. And I always really enjoyed doing that, and was lucky to be able to continue to learn doing that. And again, probably at Canterbury was where I probably learnt a lot about that, because as a food and beverage department, we worked very hard on doing those sorts of things. And, you know, we developed a strong functions business, and our restaurants, we were lucky that our restaurants were quite successful, which is sort of, and that's probably where I decided that, you know, I was looking towards life after the kitchen, you know, and how do I learn more about, you know, what else is available. And back then I had a very good food and beverage manager, a guy called Anthony Biasotto, who's still a very close friend of mine. And, you know, we worked, you know, pretty hard to make that happen. And we had another, you know, group of good people with us to sort of drive our business and understand the finances of our business. And we both come from outside the club industry. So, you know, we wanted to learn more and more about what it cost to do what we did. we work pretty hard to do that. So yeah.
Did you travel overseas at all?
Not so much for work. I've travelled. My dad was in the military for a long time, so we travelled sort of pretty much for living overseas. So I lived in America twice, and I haven't travelled so much for work. The only place I have worked, sorry, I have done one trip. I lived. Some friends of mine had a resort in Fiji, so I spent 3 months living and working over there, which was good fun. Yeah, they had a smaller resort down on the Coral Coast, so I spent some time there helping them out with their kitchen and in between playing volleyball and scuba diving. It was great.
Well, that would have been a nice work-life balance.
It was, yeah. I went there after I left Angelo's on the Bay and before I went to Canterbury, actually. So, yeah, it was sort of in between that time that I went and did that. It was good fun.
So you've done your career's been quite diverse in the types of cuisine and the different venues that you've worked in.
Yep.
Where was your pull? Like, where did you naturally fall?
I think probably these days I sort of fell into the club industry. Really is sort of what I've really enjoyed, and hence the reason why I've been in it. I mean, I spent a short time at a golf club up on the North Shore. It was probably my first foray into clubs, but that was a very different scenario. But then, yeah, I think getting into Canterbury was my real falling into the club industry and the people within the club industry. It's there's so many great people inside our industry, and it is such a small industry. We all interact with each other, as does the whole hospitality industry. But yeah, I think clubs was pretty much, it was kind of Canterbury, and then obviously through my time at City Tattersalls and on to where I am these days. So I've been very lucky to work with great organisations and with great people that have sort of, I suppose, pushed me to do better in regards to what I do, and having great people that I work with every single day that sort of help keeping me driving on what I do, and the passions that I have. I mean, I still have a lot of passion for what I do, and
that's really special, Simon. I mean, to kind of get to where we are in our career and to have done the journey that we've done, and to still sit here and say that you're still passionate about this industry, I think is beautiful.
Yeah,
it's like a hymn.
And I'm proud to I'm proud to say that as well, because I think it's a fantastic industry, and for people inside it, you can prior to COVID, it could take you all over the world. You could there's lots of chefs that travel the world, and we've got lots of international chefs that have come to Australia in that sense. And I think that's the great thing about it. And there's such a great camaraderie within our industry as well. It's very much 6 degrees of separation around the place and people that and I think it's important to have passion. I think that's what I try and instill on our young staff, is you need to have that passion and drive, because if you don't have that, it becomes very hard work. You've got early mornings and late nights and long shifts, and working on Christmas days and Mother's Days and all those special family occasions. I think before, in my first 25 years of cooking, I think I had 2 Christmases off. So, you get used to Christmas was the time you finish work and go home and collapse for the next couple of days. So, it's, yeah. And even now I still work Christmas Day here. I come in, and because the guys are all in here, and it's a busy day for us. So, it's about coming in and sharing that journey with them as well. And, we don't have a long day. We try and make sure here within West that we give everybody shorter days so that they either get to have lunch or dinner with their family. So we make sure that those things happen. But yeah, I think it's you have to have passion, because if you don't have passion, it gets very hard along the way.
Yeah, very, very true. So did you go into Canterbury? Was that your first role as an executive chef?
Yeah. Yep. They were they had I think a head chef prior to me, and they were sort of trying to take a bit of a different stance on where they were going with food, and obviously their group was growing back then. So yeah, they were looking for an executive chef. I didn't quite understand what an executive chef meant, but
that was going to be my next question. How would you define an executive chef as opposed to a head chef?
To me, it sort of comes on, realistically, I suppose, probably has a lot to do with the size of the venue and what you're trying to, I think if you're a multi-outlet place, you sort of need to, an executive chef might be that person that oversees those things. So I suppose that was probably what my role was going into Canterbury, and was sort of changing that as well. But yeah, I don't know. I don't. It depends, because there's a lot of great head chefs. I've got a great head chef, Luke, who works with me here. Yeah, it's a
I
very,
drool over his Instagram shots all the time.
yeah, he's very good at that. So he's much better than I am with those sorts of things about managing his social media and that sort of stuff. So, and he's, you know, very talented guy. And again, he's been outside the club industry and come back into the club industry. And I think he certainly found his feet. And, you know, we had lots of good chats and that sort of stuff along the way about where we're going. But yeah, it's a tough one, head chef. I suppose if you want to put it down to a proper definition, is maybe an executive chef is more of a managerial sort of style role. Realistically, it's probably be, you know, the bigger difference, because you might have multiple outlets that you are looking after. So it could be
just a bit more operational.
Yeah, and I
more
think
thought thinker.
Yeah, and yeah, having your fingers in lots of different pies, you know, in that sense. So you probably.
And how did you go transitioning from being a chef to being a leading chef? And I'm not going to say executive chef. I'm just going to say a leading chef.
So yeah, senior chef. I mean, you know,
yeah.
I have the same thing here with my guys. We have a senior team of our chefs, and you know, everybody has buy-in. I think you have to change how you are. Certainly these days, I know that managing things has changed. You know, you have to. Chefs were notorious for being, you know, my way or the highway as managers, and I think we've all had to evolve that over the years, because it doesn't work. You don't get the best out of your staff by just giving them a hard time.
I love hearing you say that. It warms my heart.
You have to get in and support these guys, and, you know, sit down and chat with them, and, you know, everybody has their good and bad days, and invest that time. You have to be invested in the people around you, and I suppose that's where is going into that senior role. That's what it's all about. It's taking what, you know, the little bits that, you know, it's having the ability to continue to learn. You know, the young chefs who come into my venues or our venues every single day, you know, they know a lot more about what's going on inside, you know, food trends and that sort of stuff, and they drive those things. And, you know, I thrive on that. I have to be able to come in and learn about stuff. You know, they all have a joke when I come in and want to do some cooking and all that sort of thing. And, you know, the last two lockdowns, for the first couple of weeks, I was the staff cook, so it was pretty funny. Everybody was having a chuckle at me back in the kitchen cooking stuff, and they still do.
As you start to morph into more of that leadership role, do you feel that you lose some of your ability in a kitchen? I mean, look, I was a chef for 20 years, but I'm telling you, there is no way in the world that I could go in now and do a service, nor would I even want to.
Oh, I can burn a pizza, the best of them. I think no, you're 100%. I mean, as much as you think that you can go back through and did it, I reckon if the guys threw me into a busy service, and, you know, I'd have sweat pouring off my brow and spinning around in circles and trying to figure out what I'm doing and that sort of stuff.
Your passion just moves, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you know.
I think we got caught out. I'll go back a few months. We had a really busy game night. We had a game on next door at the stadium, and we got absolutely hammered. We weren't expecting to be. And I was trying to pull things out of the oven and help people. I burnt myself so many times pulling stuff out of the oven and just trying to be, you know, what do you need? What can I get you? And that sort of stuff, you know, pulling in plates and, you know, doing whatever you can. And I suppose from now, it's just, trying to help out where I can, regardless of what that's doing. So, yeah.
So how do you maintain standards?
I think it's probably, you've got to first set your standards really at the end of the day about what you want to have, and communicate that down. So I suppose it's talking with the guys, who, you know, with everybody who's around you and that you work with, about maintaining those. And again, you know, that there's a certain thing about having, everybody knows that there's a line in the sand. It doesn't matter whether it's your fellow managers or your junior staff. Everybody knows there's a line in the sand. I think you still have to have that somewhere along the line. And I think my famous line is firm but fair, really, is how you need to manage everybody, because people still need to know the boundaries, and obviously there's, you know, there's expectations of how your managers behave, and there's expectations of how your staff behave, and then there's also expectations of the products that we deliver. So, you know, I suppose it's about being clear with those. If you want to talk from a kitchen point of view, it's about having photos and recipe cards and training and getting all your staffs to be a part of that, you know, making cocktails and, you know, training your staff. And again, it comes back to investing your time in your staff, you know, making sure that they're a part of that journey and a part of what they're doing. You know, are they they're making specials. Well, show us what you want this to look like, and you tell everybody else what you want it to look like. And I might plate up a dish, and everybody will go, "That looks silly," and they'll come up with a better way to plate it. So it's about building that sort of team and having the expectations. Have every not just you. Sometimes, you have to set certain expectations, but I think it's also about having everybody else be a part of those expectations, because then they're all invested in it as well.
And do you do performance reviews?
Yeah, we do. Yep.
And are they, and this is just purely, I just think this is an interesting topic for our industry in all, but do you do 360 performance reviews, or do you get reviewed by your staff as well, or do you just speak to them about setting KPIs and all that sort of thing?
They review me all the time.
In a formal setting.
Yeah. No, I suppose for me it's about getting feedback from my guys. I'm very open in regards to not having all the answers and all the ideas. So I, as I said before, it's about making them a part of it as well. And I'm not only is there myself within this organisation, but there's lots of people that I work with on a daily basis who are very invested and also very passionate about what we do. And that's where I get my review, because I've got people in this business that are very, very quick to come back and stop me when they think I'm getting a bit carried away with something. So,
that's nice though, right? I mean, we were a bit of a generation that were taught to just put up and shut up to a degree. And I think it's nice that there's that confidence and that ability to be comfortable enough to be able to come to you and
absolutely
and provide feedback and buy in, and you make them obviously feel like it's relevant as well.
And that's, and again, it comes down to, it's probably what I've enjoyed so much about my time in the club industry. It's about everybody investing with the one outcome. If I've been lucky that we've, in my 4 years within this organisation, we've done so many different renovations and put together many different ideas, but it's not just about me. It might come down to some specifics with me, but again, it's about how does every other department within the organisation, how do we all sit down and come up with the direction and the ideas? And I suppose that's what I really enjoy. It's that combined resources, because I don't have all the answers. Somebody else might come up with another idea, and it's great. Because mine are probably going to be quite specific in regards to sort of food and beverage. So it's about having everybody a part of that. And we've done with three of our venues, we've done some major renovations inside in the last sort of 4 years, and we're about to continue on with some more. And that's exciting. But it's about everybody as a part of that. Doesn't matter. I suppose another, even with COVID, when we came back from COVID last year, it was how do we take, food and beverage was quite slow within our organisation. So how do we reutilise everybody within and make everybody a part of that? So I've got, front of house guys who are helping on reception, functions guys who are helping on the door, helping run our floor, our function team leaders who are helping running our floor, our team leaders inside food and beverage who are helping in other aspects. And, we're all doing cleaning roles and all sorts of different stuff to sort of help keep our business COVID friendly. So again, it's about being able to adapt to sort of different.
That's actually really clever. So you've kind of got this multitasked, cross-trained staff force, really.
Yeah, and look, we were very lucky, everybody, and again, even as we go back to, working towards an opening again, our staff are really invested in getting back to work in our business, and it's so pleasing to see that people are, you put out a bit of a question, are you interested in doing that? Last year our guys were in painting and doing all that sort of stuff, and our chefs painted the ceilings inside their kitchens and stripped out areas, and we were doing all sorts of different things. And it's about everybody wanting that piece of the business and being happy to step outside their square, because that's what we need to do to get reopened, and that's what we need to do to keep our business running. So
how different do you feel the recovery and the reopening phase will be this time compared to last time?
Yeah, I think we were chatting about that a little bit earlier on, and I suppose we're at the stage where we're trying to figure out how does business look. I remember last year we sort of really, didn't quite understand what people would be wanting to coming inside the venue. So I think this time, I think food and beverage will probably come back a bit stronger than last time. As I said to you, you know, when we were chatting earlier on, I think the challenge was that every part of our industry was just getting back to normal when we locked down again. So we've gone back to square one in every aspect. So it's about taking those stepping stones to rebuild ourselves. But I think that people will want to come back out again now, and you know, maybe last year people were a little bit timid about sort of coming back into things, but I think now things will change and people will be confident about coming back, and I think, you know, getting back down to your local club or pub or restaurant or your local cafe, you know, even grabbing a cup of coffee. It's, you know, I know some of the cafes have been lucky enough to be able to do takeaway and those sorts of things, but, you know, being able to go and sit in a cafe, and, you know, there's a lot to be said for that, having a nice breakfast at some point. So I think we will be strong. I think the fact the government's extended those vouchers will also help us as well. You know, that'll encourage people to come back in. So I'm hopeful that we will be. Unfortunately, probably, I think, again, as was last year, I think the toughest part of it is the events part of the business. That'll be, you know, not only inside the club industry, but outside elsewhere, you know, weddings and functions. And, you know, I feel for all the people who purely rely on events revenue to keep them alive. I mean, that's very tough. You know, I know they announced last week you can have a wedding ceremony for 5 people, but, you know, who's going to be doing that? And
well, people that want to save money on a wedding might think it's a bit exciting. I mean, do you want to spend $100,000 or do you want to spend $50? Like,
yeah, that's right. Very much.
I was actually like, Chloe, my daughter, Chloe, are you interested in getting married?
yeah, perfect timing. You can have 5 people.
You save mama some money.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, look, I'm, you know, I always like to try and err on the positive side of things, and I think that we will bounce back. And you know, it's tough to be back at square one. I was just looking at our, you know, figures from this time last year when we reopened, and sort of trying to map out, you know, how things go. And it is tough. It is tough to go back in, but I suppose I think it'll all be about how confident people getting out and about, really. And if we can make people, you know, one of the things that we did, and I think we did that really well, was we made people feel comfortable inside our venues, and we made people feel safe. And I think that's probably a luxury that bigger venues do have, and bigger organisations, is we can, you know, we can probably have a couple of extra staff here and there to make sure that we can make people feel comfortable coming back in. And I think that from our point of view, I think we did that really, really well. And people made people comfortable coming back in, and I think that's an important thing, and I think that'll put us in a good position for when we reopen again in the next little while. So
yeah, I think that people will be itching to get back out into these venues, and it's interesting how much everyone really just is supporting local and wanting to support businesses, and you know, really trying to do their bit at the minute, which is nice to see.
Oh, I think it's fantastic, isn't it? You know, it's nice to see people getting back, and I suppose, and on the flip side of that, it's also interesting to see what everybody's cooking at home. You know, I think people have become really invested in, you know, cooking again. You know, it's really interesting to see what, you know, you watch people in the supermarkets and see what people are buying, and I know, just, you know, talking to friends and family and everybody here about, you know, what's everybody doing cooking, and because we're so busy with work, you know, you come home from work and you want to put something quick together. You know, it's really only the weekends that you've got time, whereas now you've got time on your hands. So we have an ongoing joke here about banana bread inside our organisation. Well, you know, pretty much aimed at me, about, you know, people making banana breads, but I got to the banana bread stage about 5 weeks ago, so I'm not sure where I go to next.
That's so funny. So
I made chocolate.
Sorry.
I made chocolate chip cookies last week. Actually, that was my thing last week.
That's very clever. See, this is why I have neighbours like James Bilingual that just he just does all this cooking and just drops it over, and I'm like, okay. I'll just keep talking to people. That's sort of my happy place. But
even Sam Burke, you know, you look at every weekend, Sam's got something else going along the way.
Isn't he amazing?
Look at what he does, and I think he's revitalised. I know, you know, I probably, between my brothers and brother-in-laws and a few other people, everybody's getting back into the, you know, the old school Weber cooking, and, you know, people have really been coming back in, and it's great coming back into spring now because it's perfect time for barbecues and that sort of stuff. But Sam's great, you know, listening to I've been going through watching YouTube stuff on barbecuing and different ways, and then I go back through, and I think I sent a lot of my guys a few different things that Sam has been doing along the way, and he does it very well, and also does it in layman terms for everybody to be able to understand. But there's some great stuff.
I think that's sometimes the beauty of having a chef not training, but creating that awareness for chefs. We do have a specific language that we do speak.
Absolutely.
And it's not an overcomplicated language. I mean, I sometimes get into conversations with people that speak, I don't know, it's like a real educated type of connotation and I just sometimes feel a bit like, oh God, am I really that dumb? But then I get with like-minded people and I'm like, this is just who I am. I think we just keep things quite simple.
It's always been the best way. If you look at how food's evolved, really, it's all going back to, if you can get good ingredients and, you can do whatever you like with them. And the revitalization of barbecuing over the last few years has been crazy. I mean, we have a whole kitchen dedicated to it and that sort of stuff. And for me, I'd never done that sort of style of cooking. So it was about learning and, learning those sorts of things. And again, it was my, some of our young staff that were teaching me about how we do barbecuing, and they came up with their own rubs. So we got those made into big containers, and, these young guys were just always keen to come in and try new things and push new boundaries as far as what we could do, sort of smoking and cooking and that sort of stuff. So it's really great fun. It's funny, going back to Sam, is we sort of planned to do a big masterclass inside the venues prior to shutting down. It was meant to be happening. So Sam was going to come out and do some stuff with our guys, and we were going to involve. There's a butcher across the road, who has a couple of young guys as well, which we use for a couple of things, and we were going to bring a couple of his apprentices over and then send our guys over and do all that sort of stuff. So it's about that sort of food journey really for everybody.
It really is. It's about I think it's actually really interesting you should be talking about this, because last night when we do our friend chit chat on a Tuesday night, Paul Rivkin was saying about how he got an old barbecue that he had and he just welded it up and created a smoker. And he was the same. He was saying he's never really got into smoking meat and playing around with it. And he's really enjoying learning about it as well. And I find that, if you can use your time at the moment wisely to learn something new, it's pretty special.
I've even cracked out a couple of cookbooks and been looking through a couple of cookbooks and that sort of stuff to try different things. But I was the same. I think, what are different things that you can put on a barbecue and how do you cook them? And, it's funny, Weber barbecues, and it's not a promotion in any way, but those sort of style of barbecues have been around for so long, but yet we're all gravitating back to them. And, we
just bought one. Well, we did, and we bought it at Christmas time last year. It's just incredible.
They're awesome fun. And I always, whilst it's a bit different, it takes a little bit longer. I still stand by the 3 beer theory that after your 3rd beer, the charcoal's ready to go. So it sort of makes for a nice afternoon, really, at the end of the day. If you're doing an 8-hour cook, it could get a bit messy towards the end of it. But, it's such great fun. And there's so many different ways to do things. But, I think that's where, that's probably the flip side is everybody's gotten really back into cooking at home and trying different things and doing different stuff. So that's always nice to see.
And it's good to see even trying to take up that learning about new products and connecting back with your suppliers as well, where you've got the time at the moment to listen to each other. Would you agree?
Yep. And it's important to keep chatting with your suppliers as well during this time. It's because they're doing it just as tough as we are as well with not having things happening. So it's very important.
And what are those and sort of at the moment, so have you started to plan for reopening as yet, or is it still a little bit too early?
We're probably just trying to figure out what we need to get completed before reopening. I think we're at that stage right now, is looking at, okay, well, if we are going to open in 5 weeks, what do we need to do to get that to that stage? I think probably once we sort of get within 2 or 3 weeks, then it'll be starting to talk about, getting stuff back in and what are we going to need? What's the menu going to look like? If we're not going to be as busy and we're not going to have as many people around, then, we need to change.
I mean, Yeah, you've kind of almost got to have like a crystal ball, don't you, to kind of
Absolutely.
be able to see into the future. And
Yep.
you kind of, so do you kind of hope for the best and plan for, you bring your common sense into it and plan as best you can, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's, how many people, you'll start off heavy because you want to get everything ramped up and get going. And then, pardon me, about a week into it, you might have to wind things back a little bit because you might not be as busy as you expected. So in that sense, so it's, it is. It's, like we always say, it's about having that crystal ball and figuring out.
So how have you guys managed, or how have you managed the skills shortage? Have you had much of a problem getting staff?
We had a big problem in the lead up. We've been massively recruiting since we reopened last year, and it's been a real struggle trying to find, I think, everybody in the industry, and I know it's not just our industry as well, but it's been it's been real tough trying to find people to get in. And look, a big frustration of mine is just getting people to turn up. You ring people and spend time calling people, and they send through resumes, and then they don't show up for interviews. It's very, that's a frustrating side of it. So it's a matter of, finding good people and getting onto them straight away, going through our processes here to get people onboarded and into the business, and then, getting them to sort of settle in. But and it's going to continue to be tough. I think that's, we're lucky. I'm lucky this organisation has been really supportive about its staff, about keeping our staff invested and activated within our business. And that's really important, because it's, to be honest, it'd be very easy for people to turn around in hospitality and say, well, the last 2 years we've been 3 months without work and struggling without income, and maybe I should go and find another job. And I suppose that's what happened with all of us. Lots of people left the business. Lots of people left the industry because it was too volatile. But I suppose this lockdown has probably made everybody's industries volatile. Everybody's been affected. Where do you go from here? But again, it's about really keeping your staff, making sure your staff understand that they're a real part of your business, and you want to keep them invested in your business. It's hard.
Have you started looking at recruiting mature age workers? And when like for the hospitality industry or food service, I mean, mature is like over 35, right? Like let's not pigeonhole it. But instead of focusing on the kids coming out of school, we've been there, we've flogged that to death. It's not working. It's, the parents, like you said before, with your mum and dad, they want their kids to go to university. They're not pushing them to go into hospitality.
Yeah.
I just can't help but feel like there's something there to be explored when it comes to mature workforce.
Oh, look, I agree. I think there is. We've got quite a few, within our organisation in that sense. And, there's the flip side of it is, they're probably a little bit more settled in their life. So they're not looking for to be out all night and doing all that sort of stuff. Not that they can do a lot of that at the current time, but yeah, it's about that sort of different mentality is people having that real will and drive to work. And I suppose that's probably been the big challenge is, just throughout hospitality, is getting people to be here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights when, are you going to be here doing all those sorts of things? And, sometimes those people who are a little bit older, they're a bit more mature and not looking to be out, socialising during those times. So they're a bit more invested in coming into work.
And have you also have you adopted a different type of rostering system at all?
No, not so much. Well, I suppose we've just sort of had to adapt our rostering. I think one of the questions that was asked of us was, how do we make our chefs rosters a bit more palatable for everybody? We're renowned for having split shifts, and I was asked the question earlier on is, how do we make our chefs roster a bit more attractive for people? And we try as much as possible. We were really short-staffed in the lead up, so our guys were, it was funny. We were having a joke about everybody being run down in the lead up to being locked down. And when it was first for 2 weeks, it was almost like a breath of fresh air. Was that everybody was going to get that break? We were having a joke about the fact that, everybody wanted a break, and now we're going to get that break for 2 weeks. But now all of a sudden things are going back. Here we are 10 weeks down the track and we're still going. But I think it was, how do we make our rosters more palatable to people, especially from a chef's point of view? How do we take out those split shifts? And I know there's lots of businesses that are looking to try to do those things. But then on the challenges is you've got to try and have the staff to fill a roster if you're not doing, you're not doing split shifts. So yeah, it's a double.
That's why they have brains like yours at the leadership team that to come up with these different initiatives and work through these problem solving, right?
Yeah, and it poses its challenges, doesn't it?
So where do you draw some intel from? Like, do you look globally, or do you look at what do you draw in other chefs? Like, where do you go to brainstorm different ideas?
I think it's probably, talking about people within our industry. It's, I'm lucky that I've got a great group of people that I've worked with over the years that I can sort of still draw on for information, and friends who are, in other parts of our industry, and those friends in the club industry. I suppose it's all, one thing I've always said about the club industry is we've all got the same challenges at the end of the day, really. About what we're going to do, and there's no point us trying to compete against each other for anything. It's about how we can all work together and drive our business. So again, it's talking with people, talking with the guys that I work with every single day, and what can we do that's different? What can we try that's different? What's new? Where are we going? And that sort of stuff. And yeah, you're right. It is looking and keeping on top of. I'm still one of those guys that. Is it still called Good Living? But I still read my Good Living on Tuesdays. I remember doing that, for years. Every Tuesday was a ritual. You sat down with a cup of coffee and read Good Living to see what was going on and who was moving where. That's the other funny thing that's changed in our industries. I mean, back when I started, 8 months was a long stay in a business.
Yeah.
Back then, chefs weren't. If a chef was staying for 12 months, he was getting long service leave. Really, back in those days, and that sort of stuff. Whereas now, you find that people like that longevity and they like the stability with inside an employer. So, it's about creating that environment where they do feel. And I think that's another thing that we've done well was going back through, recognizing a lot of our staff that was sort of casual or permanent part-time, and, how can we get them to feel a bit more stable through such a volatile time, and can we make them either permanent part-time or full-time, and keep those people invested in our business as well. Giving them a support to say thank you for being a part of us. We'd like to make you a stronger part of our business. So,
and just giving that acknowledgement, because it is interesting, because whilst we are quite loyal people, we as we're always chasing the next challenge and looking at opportunities, and it is interesting to see how people are staying in their jobs a lot longer, which says a lot more about the business, I think, as well.
Yeah, and you're right. There's people that have been in this business for decades, and I work with on a daily basis who are still as passionate about what we do and how we change ourselves and how we improve ourselves as when they first came in here. And that's a really important thing, because you need to, and again, it comes back to making everybody feel as though they've got buy-in to what we're doing. And I think that's from speaking on part of this organisation, is that's what we are really good at, is giving everybody a bit of buy-in to what's going on inside the business, and again, reinventing ourselves, because I think years ago the restaurant cycle was probably about 7 years where you had to reinvent yourself and try and do, and it's the same inside what we do. And what are we doing and why? Sure, we're going to always need to do a chicken schnitzel. That's never going to change. But what else are we doing? What other things are we doing inside? Why can't we offer restaurant quality food to our customers who want to pay? I think years ago somebody said to me, why wouldn't you want to do just basic simple food? I said, because you've got families of people that want to come out and spend money, and if people might be coming to clubs because there's a kids play area, and there's dad can mum and dad can sit and watch the sport while the kids are playing, and so on and so forth, but they're also going to want quality food. And going back to what you were talking about, changing what we're doing within clubs, was making sure that we have that offering inside our clubs. In that sense, making sure our food is good and we are using good ingredients and fresh ingredients, and giving people the opportunity to have nice restaurant quality food. And I suppose, whether it's inside a bistro or dining area or in your functions, there's no reason why we can't be doing good quality food for everybody. there's lots of different ways to keep yourself ahead of that and make sure you are.
Yeah, I love that. And are you starting to use a lot more of origin descriptions on your menu as well, starting to call out where these products are coming from?
Yeah, I think we do as much as I suppose you've got to find a balance in between it. I mean, people will want to know where things are coming from, and we we always try and make sure as much as possible we're getting, it's very hard to get local products, but we're certainly trying to make sure that what we're doing is Australian based and knowing that, because people do want to know. People want to know where their beef's coming from, what is it fed on, where's your salmon coming out of, where are your prawns? Are you getting prawns from South Australia or Queensland, and all that sort of stuff, because that's the other thing that's changed, is that people have a lot more knowledge and they want to know a lot more about food,
and there's a lot more allergens now, like a lot more allergen awareness now as well, right?
Absolutely.
And how do you guys manage? And I know that we're running out of time, and this is what this is my biggest thing whenever I get together with you. I just cannot stop talking. But how do you manage your allergen information as well?
Yeah, it's we've had to really, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, we've really had to change what we're doing with that, and that's come from pressure from people outside. So we've had to really revisit what we're doing on our menus, and then in the old days it was, oh yeah, if you just ask us, we'll fix that up. Whereas people have the expectation that they want to be able to come in and see a menu and, are you looking after this allergen? So again, it's coming down to, what we're putting on the plate and making sure that those things are available. But there's a huge amount, but it's also again about having, I still put it back to the fact that people need to understand how the allergens affect them. There's one thing that not liking garlic or being allergic to garlic, and are you a celiac and completely allergic to, or do you just have an intolerance and those sorts of things. So it's also about having people understand their needs of what they want. It's tough. You've got to add whole sections into your menus now to be able to add on that, and then at the bottom of that, you also need to give them the opportunity that just ask us a question, and we can certainly talk you through what we can do to make sure we look after people's dietary requirements, because the list has just got bigger. I think we had a function last probably 2 years ago. I think it was a 600 person function. I think there was 70 different dietary requirements on that, and in the old days it was, are you a vegetarian or that was about it, whereas now there's so much.
And that's really interesting. So look, once upon a time, we used to get an allergen come onto our pass, and it used to be like, oh my God, okay, here we go. It is what we have to deal with now. It is part of life, and it's something we've got to take seriously and give it the respect that it deserves, because these are paying customers, right?
Yep, very much so.
So do you then also create that empowerment of your staff to welcome that? They just accept it, right? It's not like it's a problem.
Yeah, exactly right. You have to be able to have that conversation with people when they come and talk about it. And for many years, when somebody came with an allergy, chefs used to roll their eyes and, oh no, what are we going to do now? Whereas now, the conversation has to either start with the waiter or the people taking the order. When somebody communicates that, your staff need to know what they're doing and what we can provide to help that person still, enjoy their meal, whether it's, gluten-free or and those sorts of things. You have to be doing that sort of stuff, because there's constantly people are, asking that question every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my friend, I think we need to do this again, because I've actually got a whole lot more other questions to ask you, but I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been great to chat. Thank you very much. Feel very appreciative of the fact that you've asked me to come on board. So, it's,
Oh no, of course. You're always on. You're always one of my go-to people, and I love the way that you really do call a spade a shovel. You keep it real. It's black and white. There's no noise around that. It's you're very good at being articulate.
I try to be, and I try. At the end of the day, as we were saying before, it's you know, our what we do is providing people with a lovely meal and a nice environment to have that meal, and nice service, smiling faces, and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's really important that we have to go back and remember that we're about, you know, being an enjoyment, being whether it's an occasion or, you know, it's just somebody wanting to duck out for dinner like it will be when we reopen again. It's, you know, we have to remember where we sit within that, and make sure everybody enjoys themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, there's a few people online here that I think that you probably should just say hello to, because they're obviously chomping at the bit. But we got Julio Azzarello.
Hello, Julio. How are you, my friend?
James Bolingle.
Very nice.
Paul Rivkin.
Hello, Paul.
Amanda Fuller.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Gary Stokes.
Wow.
I don't know that you know Gary. You would have met Gary at the through the time. And Melissa Parker's obviously there. You've got to say hello to Miss Melissa.
Hello, Mel. She texted me last night to give me a bit of a G up. So.
And Diana Lawrence, and I'm sure there's other people there as
well.
Oh,
Diana Lawrence. Yeah, speaking of
that don't really like to put a comment into the comment section, but look,
it's been great fun. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it.
It was really fun, and I actually do mean it. We'll have to come back and do this again, because I think there's a whole lot of other questions I just love picking your brain about. But thank you so much.
Yeah, more than happy to. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, you take care.
See you later, everybody. Thanks, Vanessa. It's been great fun.
Bye, everybody.